Next question, preseason training. The team is crushing us in the weight room and on court. How much of your programs can I do? So if you're being crushed and you have no energy and you feel sore constantly, then you can't do much. But ask yourself this, what buckets are being filled and what buckets are not being filled? For example, when you go out and you play a lot of basketball, like preseason, typically people are on the court every day. What athleticism buckets does basketball fill? Well, it's extensive plyometrics. So from your program, remove extensive plyometrics. I don't need any high rep, low intensity plyos because that's what basketball is, right? Like basketball is a lot of like you operating in that, 40%, like a slow jog, 40% up to like 90% of your max, because basketball is slightly fatiguing. And so you're doing everything in these like sub-max states, but you accumulate thousands of plyometric reps throughout the game, throughout your practice, throughout your skills training. So that bucket is being filled. So you don't necessarily need more extensive plyos. Extensive plyos would be better when your on-court volume is not high, because then the extensive plyos can keep the spring load tolerance on the tendons and prepare you and gradually build you up for basketball. So I would remove that from the programs. What is not being filled? Well, intensive plyometrics sometimes is not being filled on the court. The most recent study I saw on NBA players, it was like less than 3 or 4 max jumps in a full game. I think I don't know how they equated for minutes, but I'm going to assume that it was per 48. But yeah, and then imagine somebody who's only getting 10, 20 minutes a game. Like you're probably not getting any maximal jumps. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One, if I'm going up for a layup, I'm not always jumping as high as possible. I'm jumping high enough to get the shot off. If I'm grabbing a rebound and I have space, I'm not going to jump 40 inches. I might jump 20 inches because it was high enough to grab the rebound and it conserved energy. Another reason is we don't always have space to maximally jump. So I might be getting hit, I might be boxing out and then jumping. And so if I could jump 40 inches, now I'm only jumping 20, 25 inches. Again, fatigue sets in. And so my body's trying to jump maximally, but if I jump 40 inches, now I'm only getting 30, 35 inches because of fatigue. So there's a lot of reasons why you're not going to actually achieve your full max vertical jump in a game. And same thing goes for your max speed. And part of that is, especially on court, is other than fatigue, is just the fact that the court is so small. So by the time you're actually reaching top end speed, you already got to decelerate and go the other way. You're running out of room. So those are two buckets that aren't always being filled on the court. Max intensity plyometrics and top end sprint speed. So those are some things where it's like before practice, as long as I'm feeling fresh, you might want to fill those buckets. And so that could be, look through the program and find out, okay, what's like the intense, like a depth jump would be a good example of an intensive plyo. I could do a box drop, get up, touch the rim, get up, dunk, or I could just throw. So we do these like 15-minute freestyle dunk sessions. Throw those in, when you're feeling the most bouncy. So that might be before practice, like after your warm up, or that might be after practice. Some people feel really bouncy after practice. And then as far as like top end sprint speed, this is where it gets debatable. And I just broke this down on EdgeU. You don't need top end sprint speed in basketball. So it's not specific to the sport, but we make really good adaptations at the human level. One of the best ways to reduce the risk of hamstring injuries is be good with top-end sprinting. The fascicle lengthening, like the structure level, what we're changing, the fascicle lengthening, that's going to be the best from sprinting over everything else. Go back a few episodes to our flexibility mobility talk where I'm talking about how there's different reflexes that govern slow speed stretching versus high speed muscle lengthening. Entirely different reflexes. And so you're going to override or desensitize a stretch reflex when you do flexibility training at slow speeds. So you get flexible as a human, like in slow speeds, but those same stretch reflexes are not what's limiting you at high speeds. So if I want big hip range of motion when I'm sprinting, when I'm accelerating, when I'm jumping, if I want ankle mobility when I'm accelerating on a drive, like you have to expose your body to fast speeds. And sprinting is one of the best ways to do this because it's high level lengthening, like the hamstrings are going through a long muscle length. The hips are going through really big ranges of motion. We're getting dissociation between the thighs. So it is a flexibility exercise, and it's done at the highest possible speeds. There's nothing higher speed that we could possibly do. Every basketball player, I'm always looking at their mechanics and I'm assessing, is this worth the risk? If it's not worth the risk to sprint, I'm just going to build them up through sprint drills and then gradually increase. We'll start with short accelerations or resisted work, because you can't reach top end sprint speed with, resistance, or, 10-yard accelerations. These are the safer things. And then we gradually will increase that distance as long as their sprint mechanics look good enough. But sometimes we get somebody who is a good sprinter, and then we're going to do stuff like flying 10s, where I'm gradually building up, and then over 10 yards, I start at like an 80% sprint, and then the next rep I can go to a 90% sprint, and then get them up eventually to a 100% sprint. And now you're achieving true top end sprint speed. And again, we're looking for general adaptations, fascicle lengthening, increased range of motion at high speeds, increased ankle stiffness, because it's one of the highest force tasks in the shortest ground contact, like 0.1 seconds of ground contact time with all this force. That's so great for the ankle. And some of these general traits can eventually transfer over to stuff like single leg jumping. Not directly, but you're building some of the underlying qualities that the body needs to later on transfer to the court, as long as we go put in enough specific work there. Resistance training is not a bucket that is being filled. So we can still get a lot of our general strength. I could still go hit my full body lifts. This stuff becomes even more important in this period where we're getting almost all of our athleticism work, plyos, agility. We're getting all of that on the court. But in the weight room, I can go in, hit my full body lifts, tissue tolerance. We need some armor, right? A lot of times people start to lose muscle mass in that preseason or especially in season just because of how much cardio they're doing. And so if I have adequate calories and I have high protein and I keep resistance training present, even if it's just 3 days a week, that can go a long way with maintaining muscle mass, which is really going to matter later on in season, because most of us are going to lose a little bit of muscle throughout a long season, but we got to do the best we can to maintain it.